All right, folks, got a big, important announcement today. SG does. He's about to tell us everything's about to go online. Very important announcement today, so everyone needs to prepare for what's coming. Now, SG is going to be with us in just a few minutes. Let me go through everything I need to go through. First of all, hit the notifications button, like, share, subscribe. Also, folks, Venmo, 𝗬𝗏𝗏1977. Thank you for the birthday gifts. I appreciate it. I'm an old man now. I'm no longer niño. I am viejo. El viejo. Yeah, that's what I feel like. When the lights go out on Amazon, please leave an honest review. Also, my mama's book, The Mexican Mix, on Amazon. Please leave an honest review. Please like this video. Please, folks. Please like the video. Also, I'd like to say rest in peace. Prayers are with you, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗃. To you and your family, everyone that's part of the Michael Flynn family. Everyone, I understand everyone was very close to 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗃, and I only knew 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗃 from a few podcasts here and there, but he was a really cool guy, and the Patriot community is going to miss him dearly. So rest in peace, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗃. Hopefully we can pick up the torch and follow in your footsteps. Folks, get your BioTrust collagen. In a 2025 survey found that over half of U.S. adults are concerned about how fast their skin is aging, and 40% fixate on random wrinkles and dark spots. If that sounds like you, you're not alone. More and more people are noticing visible changes in their skin far earlier than expected. I wonder what that's from. This is why I use my secret anti-aging weapon, and I'm obsessed with the changes I've seen, folks, in my skin. It provides my skin with 5 must-have types of premium collagen needed to help reduce wrinkles. Since taking it, I've experienced smoother skin, more elasticity, fewer fine lines, and a more youthful glow, ladies and gentlemen. Plus, it mixes smoothly with my morning coffee or tea with no taste or clumps. Sure to grab a bag at Ageless Multi-Collagen now. It's 51% off only at BioTrust. I put the link down there below, folks, so you can get it. And I take it every day religiously with my coffee. I do that in the red light. I think I look pretty good. Hey, yo. All right, folks. Ninoscorner.tv. The General's Tent is tonight, 5 p.m. I have Stuart Swerdlow on with Laura Eisenhower. He's an MK Ultra survivor, Montauk survivor, can tell you every detail of the facility, all the underground tunneling systems around there, and he's very in with Russia. He's like an ambassador to Russia. He's in with a lot of key meetings. Very important guy, big guest. So that's at the General's Tent. Get over to Ninoscorner.tv and get VIP status. Join the General's Tent. This is going to be a big one today. I might do a doubleheader. I might have Charlie Ward on this month as well. If not, Charlie Ward will come on in October. And I may have 𝗀𝗏 on in October as well, just because how hot things are getting. And I want to bring SGANON back on as well. But you're going to hear a lot of what SGANON has to say today with things are about to go online is what he's saying. Like, so it's hot, folks. Charlie Kirk was like the kickoff to the big game. Also, Ringside with Nino, that's going to be this coming Wednesday. That's at 5 p.m., so that's going to be a good one, too. Also, Ninoscorner.tv, 𝗀𝗏 Douglas McGregor, folks. I sat down with Douglas McGregor yesterday, and I don't know, pretty controversial stuff. Could be highly triggering. But he was a very interesting guest, a very knowledgeable guy, has a lot of experience, so his voice needs to be heard, and that's going to be on YouTube. So that's YouTube tomorrow. I think I said it for 10 a.m. Not sure. Also, John Pounders is coming on. The Ghost is coming back on Ninoscorner.tv. You all love The Ghost. Also, Dale Comstock. We had a problem last night. He had a power outage. Last night, so we couldn't get him on. So he texted me and said, hey, man, sorry. I'll be on for the next one. Let's reschedule. I'm like, not a problem, bro. All good. So, folks, you might want to turn it down or turn it up. Yeah, I still do it. Because we are in the apocalypse, folks. Turn it down or turn it up. Here we go, baby. Coming at you live from the apocalypse, folks. Yeah. All right. Let's get into this. Trump strikes back. A lot of things are happening behind the scenes, folks. Believe me when I tell you this. We all know. That's what I cover on Ninoscorner.tv is the war behind the scenes, the deep state war. So Charlie Kirk assassination has shocked and shook the world, and yet has caused more division than any other time in American history, except maybe the Civil War. But you can feel it. I know we can all just feel this polarization, this division. It's like you can cut it. You can cut it with a knife. You can cut the division, the polarization, the tension with a knife. It's in the air. And the line has been clearly drawn, folks. The line has been drawn. As TikTokers and influencers take to their platforms to voice their disdain and hatred for Charlie Kirk. And I know you're still seeing a lot of this. And Trump and MAGA. Many are now getting fired, canceled, or expelled from schools. So whether we agree with them or not, my question is this. Are we doing what they did to us in 2020? Are we attacking free speech? Are we now guilty of what they were doing in 2020? This is just a question. Now, I've told you I watch as the pendulum swings left, and now it's going right, and I'm like, wait a minute here. What's going on? I mean, we're doing the same thing to them they did to us. Folks, you don't have to. That's the thing about free speech. You don't have to agree with it, right? I mean, we could find it as repulsive, disgusting, and vulgar as we want to, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about canceling people and expelling people out of school for voicing their opinions. I'm just saying. I don't agree with it. I don't like what they're saying at all. But we got to be careful here. We can't be guilty of what they were doing. Now that's just my point. I'm just bringing that up because we got to protect all free speech. So ask yourself this. Now that Jimmy Kimmel has been fired and Antifa is now going to be labeled a terrorist organization, who's really pulling the strings here? Who's really pulling the strings? Who is really in charge behind the scenes? Folks, I'm telling you, Trump is preparing for war and is slowly and surgically dismantling the left. He's preparing, and SG is going to come on to talk about this more. Think about the moves he's already made recently. Border Patrol completely shut down the border, and the Border Patrol has completely shut down the border. Military all over the border. Immigration is pretty much stopped. Imposing massive tariffs on China and other countries. National Guard has been deployed for activation in at least 19 states. Homelessness is dropped. Believe me, folks, when I tell you this, there's something going on right now with the homeless. They're disappearing off the streets. Now, where are they going? I don't know, but I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube where they're talking about this and they're interviewing homeless people and they're scared out of their mind. Have you ever seen a squirrel trying to eat a nut and it's looking around and it's all freaked out and panicked? That's how the homeless people look right now. They're terrified. They're paranoid. Now, I don't like homeless on the streets. I don't like tents on the streets. I don't like them defecating on the streets. I don't like them shooting up on the streets. I do believe they need to go somewhere. But where are they going? Now, there's rumors out there saying that there's SUVs picking them up, vans picking them up, dragging them in the vans, dragging them in the SUVs, and taking them and hauling them off somewhere. Where are they going? Now, this is just, you can go watch these videos yourself on YouTube. They're all over the place. So, obviously, something's being done about the homelessness right now. Military vehicles and personnel are now starting to appear in Chicago as they set up to deport illegal immigrants and take down violent criminals. We can expect something to be kicked off there shortly. Also, battleships surrounding Venezuela, blowing up the narco terrorists. We got 𝗀𝗨cie 𝗵𝗶𝗋 cleaning up the three-letter agencies. Grand jury investigations have begun. More staffing and equipment arriving at Gitmo. A geriatric ward has been added on to Gitmo. Ban on no cash bail, making it impossible for criminals to be released back onto the streets. Ban on flag burning, because you know that's what liberals like to do. Folks, he's setting the stage for the big dance. And the big dance is absolutely coming. And I'm going to bring on SG right now. SG, how you doing?
A little under the weather, Nino, but doing well nonetheless. Good to be here.
Yeah, I was going to go through a few more articles, but I was like, man, I got to get them on. So go ahead and let's talk about what you said in the green room just recently. Well, right now with me. What did you say? You said everything's getting ready to go online.
Indeed, and I don't want to give the impression for the audience that this is, again, some sort of singular sequence of events akin to a 9/11 where we all stop and pause and then everything is rosy red and magical after that. This is a sequence of events that has to play out, that is now going from the shadow state structures, if you will, the background institutions, into the foreground. And I believe, and again, this is just my own personal opinion here, but I believe the assassination of Mr. Kirk publicly before the eyes of the world, which increasingly is looking more like a layered operation that has both truth and falsity mixed in with it. I think this is the ignition point, the starting point for some of exactly what you were just describing a moment ago about Trump preparing to, have the big dance with these individuals, right? When we look at the financing, and it really is all about following the money. When we look at the financing of TPUSA, the financing of AmFest, when we look at the financing behind Antifa, obviously, when we look at the financing behind a lot of political groups and ideologies, you actually find a considerable amount of overlap. In other words, there's a lot of commonality funding a lot of different things. And we've known colloquially as a people that it pretty much you have, the shadow political class in the background, the billionaire donor class, the philanthropic, wannabe overlords of the world class who finance both sides of everything because they know that they're going to win regardless of what occurs in the long run. When we have President Trump talking most of this year about the financing behind terrorism, the financing behind the Tesla terror attacks, the financing behind the doxing on the Doge individual, people, the personnel working for Doge and all of that, happening at the time, the financing behind the doxing of political officials and, even up to and including Supreme Court justices. All of this is going to tie back to the same dark money pool. And it's really interesting that Senator Josh Hawley was just on Fox News a few days ago talking about all of the problems, essentially, all of the unrest in America, the political, ideological, and societal unrest comes from dark money. And he used the term dark money several times with Jesse Watters. So when we look at what's happening here, Nino, fundamentally, I think we have the ignition point now where the public is beginning to realize that it is truly not us versus them. You have a ton of centrist and progressive Democrats coming over now to the camp, not just of the conservative side, but really of just this broader MAGA vision that America needs to be a safe place where we can all get along together. And if we can't handle our issues with words, then we certainly are not allowed to handle them with guns. This is a basic underpinning of civil society. It's a basic tenet of any society that functions under the principles of law and order. President Trump has reminded us a number of times in the last 8 to 10 years that we are a nation of laws. There's a reason that all of this rhetoric and at the same time the unification of the consciousness is beginning to dovetail and converge in this time. It is because we are moving into a pattern sequence of events, in my opinion, where you're going to see activation of the Soros assets across the entirety of the NGO empire. You're going to see activation of the Antifa terrorist assets across the entirety of the U.S. landscape. You're going to see supportive activation coming from other violent groups. This is one of the reasons you have the Caribbean being heavily locked down by the U.S. Navy right now and the U.S. Coast Guard. It is to prevent those supportive assets and resources from reaching their intended destinations prior to these things beginning to spawn off and go really very public. So, it's a long answer to your initial question, but this is the breach, if there ever was one. And patriots, I think, should be prepared to deal not only with a little bit of wind and rain, but some serious victory and some serious exposure as we go forward.
Well, New York now is already starting up with the protests. There's groups marching down the streets, protesting. I don't know, Alex, if you could pull something of like that up and show them just in the background marching. But it's they're saying they're happy Charlie Kirk passed away. They're happy he got deleted. They're saying spit on his grave. I mean, horrible, vulgar things. But SG, how do you feel though about them being censored or expelled from school, or like Jimmy Kimmel being deleted off air? Well, what's your thoughts on that? Are we attacking their free speech now?
Well, I think you bring up a really salient point that we all have to walk along and be very deliberate with, right? There is no such thing as hate speech because you can't really have a single individual or entity define what is hate speech. But there is absolutely speech that is hateful. And so as we look at what's happening around, the entirety of the United States of America, the way that I've sort of understood this over these last 7 days is that you do have freedom of speech. You can say what you will, and Congress shall make no law abridging what you are or are not allowed to say. But you are not free of the public recourse or of the social shame that may come as a result of whatever words that you choose to put out there into the world. Words are a very powerful medium. The pen truly is mightier than the sword, and that applies to the voice box as well. At the same time, we have the Attorney General of the United States coming out just a few days ago saying that we will go after hate speech. I think this is a little bit of an extremist point of view.
Yeah, that's a very fine line that we can be walking on there. I mean, this happened to all of us in 2020 to 2024, and now it's their turn. And I'm just thinking out of the box here, SG. I mean, and then what? Gavin Newsom runs in 2028 and then goes after us. I mean, are they pitting us against each other? I'm just looking at the bigger picture here, and I gotta look at all sides here for my audience. I mean, that's what I'm obligated to do.
Absolutely, and I think again, looking at both sides of this discussion ignites a very important societal debate, a civil re-examination, if you will, of how we act with one another. When 𝗂𝗍𝗶𝗀𝗏 made those comments, my first thought was, well, I hope that was just an impassioned, perhaps emotive response to the loss of a political icon rather than an actual tongue and teeth declaration of what the government is going to do, because the government fundamentally is not allowed to tell you what you can and cannot say. However, you are also, in the case of Jimmy Kimmel, not allowed to publicly proclaim from a public pulpit something that is defamatory, disparaging, libelous, slanderous, etc., about another party, whether they're alive or not. And have that speech entirely protected with no substantiating evidence or proof or documentation to back that up. And that is sort of codified murkily in the U.S. Code. But there is a fine line between criticizing someone or even, making fun of someone or disparaging someone and truly saying things that are defamatory and, next of kin to criminal about their behavior, about their actions, about who they really are. And in the case of public broadcasters, there's even an additional level of scrutiny under California law and under U.S. law, where broadcasters are allowed to say, a great deal of things if it is in the public interest, but because of their public presence, because of their ability to influence the broader public
persona. So advertisers, sponsors, and things like that don't like it.
Correct. And so as we look at what's happening out there right now with respect to all of the different recourse and recoiling from the speech online, I think we need to take all of it. And I know this is exhausting for the audience to consider, but I think it all needs to be taken case by case. Do we have someone who's just a clown? And remember, clowns are not free from the recoil of their employer, who they represent both online in the public space and offline in the public space if they're out and about. You wouldn't go to one restaurant with a manager that worked at another restaurant and talk about that prior restaurant badly if you worked there and expect that to not come back on you if there's overlap in the background.
But hold on, SG. Hold on right here. So if this was 2020, if Charlie Kirk was assassinated in 2020, Jimmy Kimmel would have been able to say anything he wanted. And everybody going against Jimmy, they would have been canceled. You see what I'm saying here? How the worm has turned.
Well, it is an interesting comeuppance, I think, in many regards, because it's a humbling point more than anything. And I'm gonna hop off of my soapbox on the other issue about public broadcasting for just a second, and I'm gonna appeal to the sensibilities of the folks out there from just a philosophical standpoint. If I work at a hair salon and I know that the manager of that hair salon owns other hair salons, and then I choose to go to another hair salon under that same ownership and talk crap about the one I'm working at, or if I choose to go online and talk crap about the one that I'm working at and use names and potentially even pictures and things, I am not free from the recoil from whatever is going to come as a result of my manager at that hair salon witnessing or hearing about or beholding whatever it is that I'm doing. And so if I'm misrepresenting the organization that I work for or with in a really serious, maligned way that affects their professional reputation and their professional credibility in the eyes of the public, that is cause for discipline and termination in most industries. Now, you can't legislate that. You can't codify that into the basic underpinning, superstructure of the nation, except in cases of constitutional abridgment, because everyone is required to adhere to constitutionalism inside the United States in an ideal world. But fundamentally, what we have here, I think, Nino, is a great deal of the progressive left coming to understand that you can say anything that you want to say. That is true. And the government can't kick your door down just because you're saying something the government does not like. But you are not free from the social consequences of whatever comes from the things you choose to say.
Let me just read this article here. FBI readies new war on trans people. Hey, hey, hey. The Trump administration is preparing to designate transgender people as violent extremists. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, 2 national security officials tell me we're looking at the entire spider web for any of these attacks. FBI Director Kash Patel told the House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday when asked about shootings by trans individuals. Hey. Attorney General Pam Bondi said after Kirk murder are putting this crazy ideology in our schools, echoing the growing view of many in Trump's inner circle that a cult of gender ideology is behind an explosion of violence by some as yet unidentified radical left. 2 days before Charlie Kirk was killed, Donald Trump condemned the transgender insanity. Then in an interview after the shooting, he blamed the radicals on the left, saying they want transgender for everyone. What's your thoughts on this? I mean, do you think that Trump is taking this a little too far? Pam Bondi's taking this a little too far to go and just target trans people?
Well, with respect to Bondi, I think that it would be, I think that I couldn't really opine too much on Bondi because I haven't had a chance to feel her out a little bit and to deep dive more into this. But from President Trump's angle, as you look at the operation online that we reference sometimes with respect to certain drops, and then you look at President Trump's behavior over the last, really 7 years at this point, but definitely over the last 7 to 8 months. I think what we have here, Nino, is a setup, an architecture being built out and readied to go after literally the entire spider web. That's a good terminology to use, and I saw that on the screen just a moment ago. When we talk about the spider web of the transgender movement is not
Be careful
organic.
here because we're still on YouTube, so don't go
Indeed.
full.
Indeed. But that movement itself is not organic in nature. When we look at the priming in the academic institutions, when we look at the co-opting of behavioral and psychiatric medicine of the academic and educational process of adolescent teenagers in the United States, when we look at the massive, and it is massive, Nino, it's tens of thousands of support NGOs and nonprofits and charity organizations designed to appeal to a particular gender role or a particular ideological perception or a particular support mechanism for things like transitioning and then those blend into support groups for financial remuneration that tie back to health insurance companies. The web is absolutely enormous, and what it is fundamentally is it is a social conditioning. It is a social engineering apparatus, and that apparatus has now been used to create and incubate terrorism. And so as we look at again, President Trump's designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which we've been talking about for a long time, as we look at 𝗬𝗏𝗠𝗃𝗍𝗐 being continued for almost 24 years now, coming up 24 years, I believe, this month, if I'm not mistaken. If we look, and that EO goes back to the 43rd administration and to go after the financing of terrorism. As we look at the landscape of 𝗬𝗏𝗠𝗃𝗍𝗏, that's still out there. Other executive orders that tie back to national emergencies, which are rooted fundamentally in terrorism or serious RICO mafia-style criminality, and we've seen RICO floated just in the past few days with respect to some of this landscape on the civilian side. It's clear to me that we are at a convergence point. We are at a point where ideology and kinetic resistance, in other words, ideology and insurrection, are becoming one and the same. And the American public is beginning to see with greater focus and a much more focalized lens where the problem actually is. The problem is not with our fellow Democrats out there, most of whom are pretty reasonable. They've just been intaking the wrong information for the last 30 years of their life. The problem lies with the extreme groups, the far, far, far left communist, behaviorally modified extremist groups that do not understand that they themselves have been programmed to be combatant assets in a what amounts to an unconventional insurgency inside the United States, and we're going to see that reconciled in the public narrative and probably at the hands of the administration in a relatively physical way before this process is over.
When I was speaking at schools, when I was doing the anti-bullying speeches, I remember every year I went, it was like the feminism in the youth, the boys was growing more and more and more, and they were asking more. They were more and more emasculated. They were more and more just feminine. And I remember back in the 90s, early 2000s, when I was in school, the gay population was maybe 1%, 2%, 3%. And if you were gay, you never admitted it to anybody, right? Now I'm hearing some schools have a gay population of 20 to 50% in some schools. Like people are identifying as whatever gender they want to be. I mean, it's just insanity to me. So I know we got to pull the reins back. We got to pull the reins in. But, we are now at this point. We are at the point of no return. We are now in a critical time in America when both sides are divided, both sides are polarized, and both sides are ready to go all in. Barack Obama reacts to Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, says media companies need to start standing up to Trump's teams and their dangerous cancel culture. So wait a minute. They were canceling us in 2020. Now we're canceling them. Both sides are being pitted against each other. And this is all I want to bring up to people is what the hell's going on here? I mean, to me, I'm like, wait a minute. This is like a script we're watching. Former President Barack Obama weighed in on ABC's decision to pull Jimmy Kimmel from his schedule indefinitely, warning that Trump administration has taken cancel culture to a new and dangerous high. On X, Obama posted, after years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators it doesn't like. So Obama doesn't go away. And the information I'm getting behind the scenes from people like Juan, the Ghost, other people is this guy's days are numbered. Why is he coming out fighting? I mean, is he going to go down in a blaze of glory, SG, or is this guy not going to be clickety clank? You know what I mean? Like, what is with this guy, Hillary, all of them? They seem more ballsy and arrogant than ever before.
Well, I think that's a really salient question, and I would enter into the territory of the art of war with that. Appear weak when you're strong, appear strong when you're weak. These types of things. But with respect to reports that you mentioned from Mr. 𝗬 and the Ghost and others, I can corroborate the things that I've heard from folks out there, Nino, over these coming weeks and months, is that we're going to come back to the 44th administration name by name. And so because a great deal of this really kicked off in its kinetic format under the 43rd and 44th administrations in the United States. And the 44th one was the one to really pour the gasoline on the fire and accelerate us towards what amounts to a turnkey totalitarian tyranny here inside the United States. And really as a default of that, by extension, the rest of the Western world. The BLM money, if you will. And that goes back to 2020, of course, but it goes back much further than that. It actually goes all the way back to Eric Holder and the IRS and the weaponization of the agencies in the second term, the first and second term, but primarily in the second term of Obama's administration from 2012, I believe, to 2016 or so. A lot of this stuff with respect to the non-governmental organizations, the charity funding, the siphoning of taxpayer money, dark money, that Josh Hawley referenced on Fox News. A lot of the infrastructure and movement of that occurred and was put into place under the 44th administration. The movement of significant amounts, we're talking billions of dollars in cash money to foreign governments under the guise of state gifts or some sort of reconciliation. And in at least one of those situations, we still don't have a good accounting of what the payment was made for. We just know from the Office of the Comptroller that the payment was made from the government. All of these types of things tie back to the architecture and the infrastructure that President Obama and others around him helped perfect and to put into place. And so as we unravel that thread, as we begin to pull the threads from the central part of the ball now, which I think is where we're at, we're going to come back to a lot of these threads that were first laid down 7, 8, 10, 12, 14 years ago under these prior administrations. And that, in my opinion, is why you're seeing some of those political talking heads offer such a high public visibility, commentary and involvement with what's happening in the present day and time. And if you look at it, if you read it, really closely into it, Nino, you actually have these political talking heads themselves engaging in malignment of whatever is coming from the administration, in the sense that they are telling a factual falsehood rather than simply pointing out truth to power. It was not the Trump administration that got Mr. Kimmel fired, for example, and the Trump administration has threatened regulatory action against media companies, but not because of who they have on their staff. These types of things have occurred because these media companies have completely thrown out their moral obligation and their regulatory obligations to maintain certain levels of neutrality and certain levels of balance in the airwaves. Yes, it is legal technically after the 2014 Smith-Mundt modernization situation for them to propagandize the American people, but it is not politically, and when I say politically, I'm talking about policy-based. It is not policy-based allowed for them to go afoul of certain requirements from the FCC, from the FTC, and from others. And so we're going after them not so much from a constitutional, you're breaking the law sort of standpoint, but from a standpoint of you are abrogating the policies in place by the institutions and agencies that you that allow your existence and your proliferation throughout the entirety of the United States. In other words, it's not about you messing with the customers. It's about you messing with the inside of the company now. And so we're going to go after them in the same way. And I can tell you, Nino, as a result of this sequence of events that we're now in, you are going to see broadcast licenses revoked from household names. And that's going to get the attention of the entirety of the world.
But I predicted this years ago. I said this was going to happen, and especially after Stephen Colbert, I said, just wait, folks, I am time-stamped on this. I said Jimmy Kimmel is next. And you know what? Jimmy Fallon might be next after him. Who knows? The View, Whoopi Goldberg said she's censored. The View ditches Hot Topics, avoiding Kimmel's suspension. Talk of as a new episode returns, and they go to old conversation. They're not even willing to touch anything Trump anymore. But as Soros, as these LGOs, as these funded protests, as these riots begin, because we know they're coming, SG, we know they're coming. They're going to, we know that's coming, and we know Trump is preparing for that. But the wild card here to me, is going to be the liberals, your neighbor next door, your liberal next door, resorting to violence and copycat murders or killings, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to lose their minds when all this stuff starts climaxing and things get out of control. And we don't know about the wild card. So we don't know how. We understand that cartels are going to be activated, illegal immigrants will be activated. But what's your thoughts on that, SG? What's your thoughts on just the wild card, the copycatters out there?
Well, my thoughts on them, I think, Nino, are that they're probably a smaller cross-section of the population than we would like to believe, initially. And I recognize that may, belie the audience out there a little bit and make them feel like I'm not taking it quite as seriously. But I truly believe that the propensity to actually commit serious bodily harm against your fellow man, that's a significant event horizon to cross internally as a human being. A lot of these gaslit leftists on the other side are very afraid of being hurt themselves. And so that internal fear governs, I think, a lot of that restraint, even though the restraint's not for the right moral reasons. With respect to the ones that will move past that horizon and engage in that behavior with their fellow men and women, I think that's why we've seen President Trump reopening so many federal prisons and modifying and expanding federal prisons inside the U.S. Bureau of Prison system, not just the military prisons and the Alligator Alcatraz or the Alcatraz prisons. These are iconic institutions, but they're far from the only ones that are being expanded and renovated. You've got a maximum security prison in Wisconsin that's under renovation, federal prison. You've got another federal prison, I believe it's in Illinois, that's under renovation and expansion right now and has been for a number of years. So, this is going to be, I think, a life lesson, a generational lesson to a lot of the political ideologies inside America, not just on the far left, but even on the violence, the violent prone extreme far right. We're talking about 2% of the far right over there that are willing to just blow up the gay man's bakery, so to speak. And I'm using that sort of as a tongue-in-cheek example. But those extremist fringes are going to be the examples. They're going to be the life lesson for a great deal of the rest of the population, that you do not get to do whatever you want to your fellow man or woman just because you do not agree with them, or you don't agree with the direction that the majority has chosen to take the society. We are a republic, but we do have some democratic principles that inform that republic, and some of that is majority opinion and preference with individual respective rights. Right, that's the balance that we all want to see struck here for the long term. And I think you're going to have a significant segment of the civilian population be imprisoned for their actions for everyone else to take it seriously.
What's your thoughts on the homeless people being, there's eyewitness accounts happening that they're being dragged out in the middle of the night. Nobody sees them again. There's rumors of elitists hunting them for pleasure, for enjoyment. There's also other homeless people coming out saying, and these people are paranoid. Anybody can go watch these videos on YouTube. There's other homeless people saying, hey, man, we think this all started happening under the Trump administration. They think maybe the government's coming up in SUVs, dragging people off the streets, sending them to encampments. I mean, what's your thoughts on this, SJ? Have you been paying any attention on this at all?
I have. I've seen this issue come across my feed a couple of times. I haven't deep researched it, Nino, so my thoughts are cursory. But I think with what I'm seeing so far, the most likely scenario with the disappearance of some of this stuff, especially in the way it's being done, is I think you have cartels tying up loose ends. And I think it's happening all over the United States.
Like trafficking
of fentanyl and human capital and things of that nature. The Trump government has said they're going to go after the fentanyl crisis. They're going to go after the human trafficking crisis. They're going to go after the child trafficking crisis. And we just saw Trump today talk about I believe it was on Truth Social, a post on Truth Social, where he put out that he and President Xi had talked and had a very, very productive phone call. And one of the major cornerstones in that phone call was the proliferation of fentanyl and the drug trade inside the United States of America. So if you have a massive RICO-style criminal enterprise all doing business with one another in a mafioso-style fashion, and you now have two of the most powerful governments on earth having conversations about your enterprise's activities, and the president of the United States saying that we have some agreement on some of these activities and how we're going to approach them, if I were in the position of that enterprise, I would do anything and everything I could to erase my footprint from anywhere inside the United States. And in many cases, I would probably have to remove the human capital that I had trafficked or silence that capital. And I would also need to try and shut down the paper trail, the movement trail, if you will, of any of the substances that I've brought into the United States over the last several years, or however many years it's been where I've been engaged in these activities. I think that's a more likely explanation for what we have going on with that homeless population inside the United States.
I mean, it's a jungle out there, no doubt about it. And these poor people are fighting for their lives every day. I feel bad for them, but hopefully if they are getting taken out by our own government or people picking them up, I'm sure the cartels are taking them. I'm sure the elites are taking them for pleasure and enjoyment. I'm sure our governments. It's a jungle out there, man. Trump announces he's designated Antifa as a major terrorist organization. President Trump announced Wednesday that he will designate Antifa as a terrorist organization and is recommending investigations into people who allegedly fund it. It's unclear when the designation will take place or what legal implications it will have. Antifa, short for anti-fascist, is a loose affiliation of mostly left-leaning activists and generally is not considered to be a highly organized group. I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization, the president wrote in a Truth Social post. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. What does this entail, SG? How is he going to target these people? What, for their ideologies, their beliefs, something they post on social media? How are we going to target people that are attending protests, wearing black, have purple hair? What's next? I don't understand. I mean, you're allowed to believe what you want to believe in America. I'm just wondering how we're going to target them as a terrorist organization. Can you explain that? Can you elaborate on this?
Well, I can elaborate on it. I guess I would start my answer conceptually with, the organization itself and the organization's foot soldiers are sort of at loggerheads with one another about what the aim and purpose and true motive of the existence for the organization even is. It's sort of a weird situation. It's almost like you have a terrorist organization that has a lot of zombies that work for it that have no idea who they work for, or that the activities that they're engaging in are terroristic in nature, maybe with the exception of like a small cross section of those captains and street captains and enforcers and things like that. So when you look at the broader Antifa movement itself, where does the money come from? It almost always ties back to some sort of philanthropic interest or some sort of non-governmental organization or charity or international organization that is applicable in certain jurisdictions to charity. It hardly ever is coming from, or you have billionaire donors and things like that. It hardly ever is coming from mom and pop. It's not really coming, from what we can tell, from the U.S. government. We did discover some U.S. aid funding to terrorism underneath the Doge, the Doge period earlier in the first of this year. The Doge arc is what I'm trying to say with that. Throughout the first few months, 5, 6, 7 months of this year, we saw that hammered out there. But when we talk about designating the organization as a major terrorist organization, when we look at other terrorist organizations, we like to think, oh yeah, well, they're an organization and then all of the terrorists are on the same terrorist page and they get together and have terrorist dinners together and they talk about the same talking points and they're all this unified force. That is not so with Antifa, Transtifa, and the various Soros groups that exist out there across the entirety of the Western world. Most of them are MK Ultra to some degree. Most of them have experienced significant behavioral modification and oftentimes have ongoing behavioral modification through psychotropic drugs and certain connections to therapeutic services. And so all of that creates this environment where the organization is in fact an international cartel that is trafficking people, that is certainly labor exploiting people, that is paying off, initiating bribery at certain levels at both local and state levels. We saw that sort of on display in 2020. But the foot soldiers of the organization think that they are the righteous army of the Lord. And so as we look at what's happening here, I think you're going to have a lot of individuals caught up on the ground level that are going to be confused as all get out and probably receive relatively lenient treatment unless they've engaged in seriously violent behavior relative to the treatment of those above them who have engaged in knowing incubation of societal unrest, knowing labor exploitation, knowingly committing certain levels of or certain types of trafficking across interstate lines, knowingly circumventing the lawful authority of the government of the United States. That's a whole separate picture that's going to apply for the organizers, the financiers, and the funders in the background, over and above the bozos at the street level that think that again, they're just doing the Lord's work.
So as we fight this war here domestically, SG, Poland invokes NATO's Article 4 over Russia's drones as tensions rise. Poland has triggered NATO's Article 4 after Prime Minister Donald Tusk reported that 19 Russian drones breached Polish airspace during an overnight strike on western Ukraine. So now Poland's wanting to get involved, and NATO needs Poland to get involved so they can perpetuate and propel World War III. Tusk said that 19 Russian drones entered Polish airspace. Threats were neutralized by Poland and NATO defenses. Poland formally invoked NATO's Article 4, citing a threat to national security. Warsaw's Frederick Chopin Airport and surrounding airspace were temporarily shut down. Ukraine and European allies called the incident a significant escalation of Russia's war. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov declined to comment, defending to Russia's defense ministry. Belarus blamed electronic warfare for the drone's deviation. U.S. response still pending. U.S. President Donald Trump issued the first public response to the Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace, posting a brief post on Truth Social. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. So 𝗀𝗎 has always come on my show and said, look, it's inevitable. We're headed into a scare event. It needs to go that way to wake up the entire world, wake up the rest of the world, and switch command from SES to Cheyenne and NORAD. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with what Juan says? And what's your thoughts on NATO invoking Article 4?
Well, I think the Article 4 movement is, a very serious, progression forward. I think that Article 5 would be, even more serious one. And as we look at what's playing out here on the ground in Eastern Europe, I would not be surprised if we see something along those lines, Nino. Several years ago, coming up on, almost 4 years ago now, my late mentor made the statement to me that at some point along in this journey, they're going to redo the 1939 ignition of World War II. And his statement to me was that particular ignition was a false flag attack. It involved Poland and the entities that the central banking empire out there did not want, to have access and independence inside their own country. In other words, the entities that they were opposed to. And we saw that area of the world utilized as essentially this avalanche ignition point of disinformation and false flags in the very early days throughout the entire month of September of that year to move the world into this warfare style footing. And of course, that war took another 6 years to bring publicly to a close. As we look at what's happening on the ground in Eastern Europe right now, and then we also have to appreciate too, Nino, the constellation of forces inside the NATO Western world that are antagonistic and opposed even to their own governments and to the betterment of their own peoples. When we look at that entire landscape, it makes a lot of sense that we would see a false flag or some sort of fake incendiary event, staged incendiary event of some kind to move that needle, that World War III style needle more forward in the minds and hearts of the public and in the minds and hearts of these governments involved. As we look at Russia, for example, Russia has said a number of times that the Baltic states are ancestrally Russian and have been Russia for a number of hundreds of years, really up until the 20th century. And in the 20th century, they were blanketed with propaganda and disinformation to make them believe that there was this separation between them and their Russian ancestry that did not exist culturally prior to the year 1900. This was not a thing that existed up until the last 100 years or so. And so I've said for a while, it would not surprise me if we see a sequence of events play out where the traitors inside Russia are highlighted for moving Russia towards a world war with NATO and dealt with internally, but at the same time moving the needle forward for Russia's territorial claims to be made on certain areas that were completely removed from Russia in some very despicable ways over the last 100 years. The same, I think, is true from the European side of things. You have the European individuals inside these, NATO governments, the Arctic Council, for example, or the Atlantic Council and the NATO Arctic Group. And then you've got all of these different philanthropic interests, post-military interest and control of the energy sectors inside places like Bulgaria, Slovenia, in Estonia, in Lithuania, right? And so these interests are also going to have that same end goal of trying to move the world towards this World War III style footing. And what does that do? That advances the cause of repatriating some of the territory, but it also wakes the entirety of the people up. It puts the spotlight squarely on them for removal. And we all know, if we've been watching a podcast like this for any length of time over the last 5 years, we are going to arrive at a point here in this journey where some military crimes have been committed, which are going to require military jurisdiction. And so in order to do that, we have to move into a footing of military jurisdiction and military activity. And I believe that's exactly what you're seeing playing out, not only in Eastern Europe with Poland and the Baltic states and Russia and these drones and all of that, but also in the South American region, also in the South Asian region, and especially right now, really in a hot way in the Middle East.
Well, SG, I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you're not feeling too good, so I'll let you go if you want to jump off, or do you want to stick around for the super chat?
No, I should probably go ahead and hop off, Nino, but I want to leave your audience with this closing thought. As we go into this period here in the United States and around the rest of the world, it's going to get way more expository. There's going to be a lot more information. There's going to be a lot of things coming at us very quickly. There's going to be a lot of attempts on behalf of certain forces, and I think those forces are in both camps on both sides of the aisle to try and derail what is actually happening here. What's actually happening is the realization that we're all one, that we're all the same basic group of people, that we have the same basic desires and wants, and that from a liberty-focused standpoint, doing free and determinative self-government society with one another is truly not that difficult if we take the angles and the different feeder irons out of the fire. And so it's going to be a very, very exciting time. And I would just caution your audience to balance their patience with their resilience and understand that all of this is going to go according to plan.
Thank you, SG. And with that, folks, let me jump into this. I'm going to read What the Fuck news. But first, A growing body of research shows that when you diet, your body fights back. Levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, shoots up, while leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, drops. That's why most diets feel like an endless battle, and the more weight you try to lose, the hungrier you get. It's not a willpower issue. It's literally your biology. That's why I use my secret weight loss weapon, and I'm obsessed with the results. BioTrust 1 GLP-1. Elevate is designed to naturally trigger my own body's weight loss signals without drugs, prescriptions, or needles. It promotes safety and a feeling of fullness, reduces cravings, reduces hunger hormones, helps me lose fat instead of muscle, and supports healthy blood sugar levels. Be sure to grab a bottle now while it's 50% off, folks. It's 50% off. And start experiencing real results only at Trim with Nino, baby. It's right there down there at the bottom. Plus, by ordering now, you're also guaranteed a free ebooks, 2 free ebooks titled The 3-Week Diet and 53 fat-burning smoothies and milkshakes. You better get in shape for the apocalypse, folks. So let's get to what the fuck news. What do you say, folks? In what the fuck news, congressional staffer, listen to this shit. Congressional staffer, 35 years old, dies after catching fire at her Texas home as her eerie last words are revealed. Are you kidding me? How does someone catch on fire at home? Can someone answer this? Police are probing the death of a congressional staffer who was found on fire at her home in Texas. Regina Santos Avilas, 35, was discovered by her mother, who called emergency crews to the Uvalde residence on the evening of September 13th. She was taken to Brooke Army Medical Center but died from her injuries the next morning, according to the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office. Santos Avilas, remembered by friends and family as a devoted mother to her 8-year-old son, and served as a regional district director for Republican U.S. Representative Tony Gonzalez since 2021. Uvalde Police Chief Homer Delgado said there was no indication of foul play, but the Texas Rangers are helping complete their investigation. How does someone catch on fire at their house? Santos Avila's mother, Noran Ann Gonzalez, described the incident as a tragic accident, and her daughter's last words were, "I don't want to die, Mom." When we arrived, we learned of a fire behind the residence that had been put out with a fire extinguisher. The fire department chief, Mario Rangel, told the San Antonio Express News. In a statement, Congressman Tony Gonzalez said, "We are all heart-stricken by the recent news. Regina devoted her profession toward making a difference in her community. She will always be remembered for her passion towards Uvalde and helping the community become a better place." Police said they were called to the Santos Avila's home in Uvalde at around 9:30 p.m., according to a call sheet obtained by KSAT. This is sad, man. I mean, they're not saying how she caught fire. I mean, how do you catch fire? I mean, was she cooking something really greasy? I don't know. How do you catch fire? How do you not see a fire and run away from it? How did she just catch fire? It didn't say the whole house caught on fire. It just said she caught on fire.
Dude, she might have been like using like a gasoline can, and then the fumes,
Stop,
get around
roll.
it. Right, I know. Stop. Yeah,
Stop
right.
I mean, you have a swimming pool, a sink.
It's crazy that I know. It's just like really tragic. Like how does it?
I mean, I guess when you're on fire, dude.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, people aren't very flammable, like unless it takes.
Dude,
really,
I don't know.
really
One time,
heat.
I have a Mormon friend, right? His name's Christian. He's been in the FBI now, but anyway, he's one of my good friends. We caught him on fire when we were kids. He was he was sitting there. Yeah, we always picked on the Mormon kid, right? So he's sitting there on a beanbag, and he's like, we're all throwing insults at each other. And my friend Danny has a matchbox with matches, and he's throwing matches at Christian, and they're getting put out as they fly through the air, like they would just lose fire and drop on him. And he's like, "Stop it, Danny, stop it!" And Danny keeps doing it, right? Danny's like, "So what the fuck are you gonna do about it?" Oh, by the way, we did squirt lighter fluid on him earlier in the day. So yeah, by the way. So Danny keeps throwing this lighter on him, like lighting these matches, throwing these like lighting the match and like skipping it off the matchbox, and it's flying in the air. And then before it would hit Christian, it would go out. And then finally, dude, we all watched as this one match just and we're like, oh no, this one's gonna make it. Boom, hits his jeans. And bro, this guy's like, bro, stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop. We had to grab him, throw blankets on the guy. Dude, his whole leg was burned. All the hairs on his leg were gone. Oh, jeez. I mean, that's the shit we used to do, bro. My God. Another time we caught a lady's hair on fire in the back of a bus. My friend James Greer, this maid was sitting. She had a lot of Aquanet on. I don't know if you all remember Aquanet. Anyway, she had like tons of Aquanet. She just sprayed her hair in the bus. And my friend James was like playing with a lighter, and he started lighting the back of her hair. And then before you know it, whoosh, her whole head caught on fire, dude. And we're hitting her in the back of the head. The bus driver pulls over, dude, opens the bus. We ran out, dude. She's chasing us. Fucking crazy. Oh, man. Yeah, day in the life in El Paso, Texas. Oh, man. So I don't know, man. I think this shit's gonna kick up, dude. It's gonna pick up speed, and people are gonna get crazy. I don't see any other way it can go, dude. Like, would you have ever believed if you yourself now were to go back to your old self in like 2005, 2010, and tell yourself then what's happening now? Would you believe it?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean,
but you would think it's the end times, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, September, you kept saying September was supposed to heat up, and it's like, wow. I mean,
dude, they go by these dates and times and seasons. It's easy to predict when you know their playbook and where we're at in the war. The deep state war, we're climaxing right now. We're in it, dude. Like, this is it. They're not going to slow down. They're not going to give up control over the world. They're not going to do it. They're going to go all in. They're not going to just give up and say, okay, I guess I'm going to go to jail now. Maybe some of the deep state actors here in politics will, but the big head honchos aren't.
No, they'll go to the very bitter end. I mean, they have their underground bunkers. They have their things they think they can retreat to. And yeah, they're not going to just roll over at any point. I mean, dude,
it's on, bro. It's on. And I bet you, I'm going to tell you now, man, as we head into Rosh Hashanah, I don't know, I'm not going to predict dates or anything, but it's just naturally going to escalate. That's what's going to happen. It's just going to keep escalating. But let's take some super chat.
Super chats.
Lucia Robertson, thank you so much. Super sticker, thank you. Beverly Adams, I work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so can only sneak on during breaks. I miss tents and ringside on those days too. Hope you do some. Oh, okay, really? I'll try to change them up like every other month or whatever. I try to please everybody. Some people can't make the Thursday and Tuesday one, so it's like, geez, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. So I'll try to do my best for you, Beverly. E1T, hit the like for David, people. Thank you so much. Brenda Rowe, Nino Booncolor, EAS killed per general. Well, I mean, I don't know what that means, but I heard it was a heart attack and like he had heart trouble since being in the military. So I don't know. I'll find out more about that, but I heard it was a heart attack. And I heard General Flynn was the one giving him CPR. So that's a tragic loss for the Patriot community, man. Scott Malzberger. Hey, Nino, those leftists that are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, there is a scripture for this. Ephesians, take no part in the worthless deeds of the wicked, but instead rebuke and expose them. Well, you know what? That's all I want to start doing. When someone insults me or something or like pisses me off, I'm going to tell them I rebuke them in the name of Jesus Christ.
That's good.
Is there any worse of an insult?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, good call.
I rebuke you. Wendy Burchett. Hi, Nino and SG. Happy belated birthday, Nino. Can you ask SG if it's safe to attend Charlie's memorial? I think it is. Obviously, there's a risk, but any specific intel advice? I think Trump's going to be there. Is he going to be there, or did he just go to the funeral?
Yeah, he's going to be there. So they'll have,
yeah, they'll be beefed up, man.
Secret Service and the security will be really high. Arizona is a good state. Like, Arizona has open carry, a lot of, patriotic gun owners, and I don't know, I think people are going to be on high alert looking for anybody doing shady stuff. Like, people are just going to be their own kind of like de facto security just as attendees of
so you don't think anything will happen?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe
it'd be a great target, right? A lot of Christians there. I mean, shit, if I was crazy, if I was a nutcase, that's a place I would target. I mean, and they don't need much. It just takes one person to just tip the fucking scale now, man.
Right. It's true.
You know, so I would imagine something's gonna happen, whether
yeah.
big or small, I don't know. Probably small because I know they're gonna have beefed up security, but who knows, dude?
No, you're right. I mean, hopefully it gets, if anything does, it gets handled, you know, handled quickly and suppressed quickly.
Yeah. Let's get to the next one. JDR17. Happy birthday, Nino. Belated best wishes and many more. Thank you so much, superstar.
Oh, that's a huge one. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big one. Dang. Thank you. Wow. Samaj S. Happy birthday, big bro. Sancho from Sanchez. Órale, vato. Thank you. Elizabeth Juarez. You know I said that right. A lot of people say Juarez. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Samaj S. Uvalde is where school shooting was years ago. Exactly. Susan Diane, happy birthday and thanks for all you do. Thank you so much. I do my best. And thank you, Alex, too, man.
Yeah, you got it, man. Thank you, Nino. And thanks, everybody. Good to be with you. Yeah,
all right, so we'll see you again Monday.
See you on Monday.
All right, folks, we're out of here. Thanks, Alex. And the new heavyweight champion of podcasting and the Black Sheep of broadcasting, baby.